Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Andrew Muscovy. I hope you guys are doing well. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Today's video is all about Dominic Solanke. Yes, we're not going to talk about Dan Ashworth because I am absolutely sick to death of it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to hear any more. I just want to hear when it's done and dusted and we can move on. So let's talk about something totally different. Let's talk about a potential striker arrival this summer in the form of Bournemouth's Dominic Solanke. He was, of course, up here last weekend as Newcastle drew 2-2 with Bournemouth. He scored in that game. He arguably should have had a couple more. And I'm asking the question today whether you guys saw enough from him in that game to persuade you he is the man for Newcastle United. Does he come in and potentially replace Callum Wilson? Does he rival Alexander Isak for the place in the first team? Let me know in the comments what you think. Now, back in January, Newcastle United was strongly linked to Dominic Solanke, and Eddie Howe was asked about it, and he did something that he doesn't usually do. Eddie Howe usually is quite coy, he doesn't give too much away, and when he's asked about potential transfer targets, his answer is somewhere along the lines of, well, we don't talk about opposition players. But he didn't do that with Dominic Solanke. He did something that shocked me. I don't know if it shocked you, but it certainly shocked me. And he said, it's a frustrating story. We have not made an inquiry. I love Dominic and signed him and rate him highly. And when I first heard that, my mind was like, whoa, okay, he must really like him, because that's something we never see Eddie Howe do. Even when it comes to his own players, he very rarely praises just one player. You know, he never really singles anyone out. But there, he's been honest, he's been open, and he said, hey, I like Dominic Solanke. Now, of course, the end of that quote was, we don't have the ability to sign a player at that level. Newcastle, of course, restricted by financial fair play in the January window, didn't sign anybody. You would think in the summer there'd be a bit more room to maneuver when they get the sponsorship money through, and you wouldn't be wrong in perhaps suggesting, predicting, guessing that, given Eddie Howe's admittance that he likes Dominic Solanke, that Newcastle might go in and ask the question of Bournemouth, can we take Solanke now? The report suggests it's going to be 50, 60 million pounds they want from him. And a report today suggests West Ham or another side interested in Solanke. So they're going to have a bit of a fight on the hands if indeed Newcastle do want to move ahead with Eddie Howe's clear interest there. Now, 60 million pounds is a lot of money. He's 26 years of age, so he's got his best years ahead of him. But is he prolific enough to cost 60 million pounds? Does that show you where the market has gone a little bit crazy? Or is that just the way of the world? If you look at his record, 14 goals this season, but his record overall in the Premier League is just 24 goals in 120 games. That's not a very good record. Now, some might argue it can take a little bit of time for players to find their feet, and maybe this is the season which sees him push on. This is the platform. This is the catalyst to see him become a prolific goal scorer in the Premier League, and hopefully he does become that, because I'm a big fan of him. I do like the way he plays. He's strong. He's good in the air. He's got a bit of pace about him. And of course, he knows where the back of the net is. But you can't get away from the stats. 24 goals in 120 games isn't setting the world alight. Signed for 19 million back in 2019. Eddie Howe, as he said there, was the man who signed him. That season, he scored 3 goals. Bournemouth were relegated. He scored 29 in the Championship. The season after, scored 6. And this season, like we say, 14 goals, which is a tremendous tally with quite a few games left to go. But 29 goals in the Championship, is that maybe where his level really is? I don't know. You can't really make that judgment, I guess, until next season to see if he can add, if he can get the double figures again. And it may well be in the black and white of Newcastle United. But did you guys see enough on Saturday against Newcastle to persuade you that he is the man to come in? Newcastle United are going to be in the market for a striker. It's inevitable, because at the moment they've got 2 strikers of real quality, but their injury records are just something scary. Callum Wilson out potentially till the end of the season. His days on Tyneside probably numbered. Frustrating, a little bit heartbreaking in many ways, because I love Callum Wilson on his day. Fantastic striker. We would be talking about him up there in the 100 club in the Premier League if he could just stay fit. But injuries before Newcastle, injuries at Newcastle. I actually saw a stat. He's missed more games through injury at Newcastle than Michael Owen did. And you have to say, given his age, given his luck with injuries, especially this season, Newcastle United need to go out and find a striker who can definitely play more games than Callum Wilson can in the Premier League. Alexander Isak, we have to keep everything crossed that this season is just a blip, and hopefully next season, this injury nightmare will be behind him, and he can certainly play more games because he hasn't played enough either. And it's really left Newcastle United stuck. I mean, we saw against Bournemouth, Anthony Gordon up front, and then alternating with Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy. It just didn't work, and Newcastle United have no one to turn to. And even if Isak comes back against Arsenal this weekend, there's no one to turn to on the 60-minute mark. You know, I wouldn't start him against Arsenal. I think it's a massive risk. Blackburn's got to be the focus. But the point being, he's not going to be match fit. He's going to need to come off at some point. But who can you turn to? And the answer is nobody. And that's why Newcastle will certainly be in the market for another striker. Could it be Solanke? Like I say, I'm a big fan. His performance against Newcastle, quite interesting. I thought there were flashes of brilliance, bit of pace about him, strength. I thought, though, Newcastle's defence handled them really well when it came to aerial battles, and that's disappointing from his point of view, from a Bournemouth point of view, given Solanke's height, given you would think that is his bread and butter. But I felt Fabian Schär, Botman, even Dan Burn, when he went up against him, battled really well with him in the air. He won 6 out of his 11 duels in the air. He won 4 out of 9 ground duels. So he didn't have the best of games when it came to kind of going one-on-one with a defender in a battle. He did all right. You know, he won half of his duels essentially, but I wasn't blown away by his aerial presence. I was blown away, though, by his good hold-up play and the pace as well. There was a moment in the second half, I think it was against Livramento, he gets the better of him, then he gets the better of Botman, and he looked like he was onto something. Thankfully, the attack was stopped, and he should have had 2 other goals as well. Martin Dubravka making 2 good saves in the first half. You would argue that one of them was right at him, and that's where Solanke has just failed. He should have popped that in the back of the net. Some would argue an elite striker would have done. Of course, the goal pressures Dubravka, but Dubravka slips and he's just got to tap it in. He's not missing from there. So I wasn't blown away. Kind of an audition, I guess, wasn't it? In many ways, I wasn't blown away. I wasn't necessarily disappointed with his performance. Like I said, I thought there were definitely flashes of brilliance, but not enough that I would say, yes, 50, 60 million pounds. Let's get him signed up. The price tag for me is the issue. If you're talking 30 million potentially, then I think I'd be much more on board with it. Be interested to see how he finishes the rest of the season. I mean, if he's hit 25, 30 goals come May, then maybe 50, 60 million is just fair market value. Now, I did ask people on Twitter whether they saw enough, and I'm just going to read through a few of the comments now. 75 replies, so thank you to everyone who got involved. I mean, I'm going to read the first reply first, which did tickle me somewhat. Just Jordan says he was fit, so that's a start. Good point. Very funny. It did make me laugh there. I mean, there was a few people saying, Newcastle need to aim a bit higher if they want to be an established top 6 side. Mal, for example, said that, that he's not the elite striker we should be aiming for. Ginger Pirlo said those 2 big chances fluffed from 6 yards are exactly what you get from him up here. He wouldn't be able to handle the shirt. It's a hard no. Robert, though, said he give Botman as good a run out as anyone this season. Botman struggled to contain him for most part. He said it wasn't Solanke's finest performance, but he's shown some consistency this season. He could do a job as a Wilson replacement. CM Magmo says he's absolutely better than current Wilson, faster, better with the ball, less injury prone. I'd take him in a heartbeat, just not for £60 million. Steve says, difficult one really, as he didn't score with a couple of decent chances, only got on the score sheet following a slip by Dubravka. Overall, the performance was okay. And I agree, the performance was okay. I think we'd be having a different conversation had he finished them 2 chances. But, you're not going to score week in, week out. David says, look busy enough and tapped in his 1-yard gift with confidence. He's a bit like Miggy, but as a striker, always moving, but doesn't get loads of goals. He's had a Miggy purple patch this season, is his argument. And Ellenson09 said they'd rather go and get Tammy Abraham from Roma for about 25 million. He thinks he seems to be the forgotten striker at the moment. A lot of people saying he would be an improvement on Wilson simply because of the injury record. A lot of people, though, worried about the price tag. JP saying I'd prefer Tony is an interesting one. Would you prefer Ivan Tony over Solanke? I guess that's the question we're going to ask. If it's not Solanke, who are the alternatives that you're looking at out there? If you've got any ideas, put them in the comments. Paul says he's had a reasonable season, but looking at his career, it's a one-off. You will be paying top dollar, knowing he wants a 5-year deal, knowing his resale value and a return of 6 goals a season. It's a no for me, afraid. And Gary makes the point, it depends on price. You could argue, he says, that £50 million would be justified given his goals this year and on the fringe of the England squad. Other people will say this season is a one-off, similar to Miggy and the purple patch last season. A lot of comparisons to Miggy. Chris saying average, didn't see anything that we didn't already have. And Paul says he was more impressed than I thought. He was mobile, made the right runs, a right handful, and won most of the aerial challenges. First chance was a miss, second good save. All depends on the cost. He would work in our team. So, look, a lot of people split. I think a lot of people would take him if it wasn't for 50-60 million pounds. Could Newcastle United and their new sporting director try and get the deal down? I mean, if Bournemouth go down, maybe they will budge on the price tag. But for 50-60 million pounds, it probably is a lot of money. And you look at how much someone like Tony might cost. He'd probably be costing 70-80 million pounds. Is that something you could see Newcastle United doing? It's an interesting one. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm kind of going to sit on the fence here. I didn't see enough to be blown away on Saturday against Newcastle. I'm going to hold out until the end of the season to see where his tally lies. Of course, as I always say, when it comes to transfers, you kind of just rely on Eddie Howe's judgment. That's definitely something you do. Transfer team's judgment. But let's see what he does at the end of the season, and let's revisit it in the summer. But right now, let me know, would you like to see Dominic Solanke in a Newcastle United shirt? Let me know in the comments, and we'll catch you guys very soon.